So if you've ever heard of the channel Star Wars Theory, it's a rather large YouTube channel. They have 3.332 million subscribers. I've never actually watched their content before, but there was a rant that they had that I saw a couple of clips posted, and it looked very funny because he was basically shit-talking Star Wars Andor. And, like, it's very clear that, like, he tries to couch it in I think it's a really good show, but I just didn't like it, but I liked it, but it seems like an incoherent mess. This guy seems like he's kind of a part of the Fandom menace, you know, like the, who else would we consider to be in the Fandom menace? There's a Doomcock and, like, Mauler, I guess. I just a bunch of those people. Anyway, I just thought this might be fun for a good, lighthearted react to a man baby who probably has a voodoo doll of Kathleen Kennedy. Like, let's just be honest. Star Wars Theory is basically a lolcow to me at this point, says Q Comics. Well, I know nothing about him other than I've heard other people talk about him in the last couple days. But anyway, let's go ahead and let's take a look at what he has to say. It's called "I'm Done Here, Disney is Destroying Star Wars, What a Joke" rant. And it looks like it's a clip from one of his live streams.
You wonder why Star Wars is in such a state where no one is interested anymore. Nobody gives a crap.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Valhalla Video says, I believe he used to do lore videos. I could be. We'll find out.
The Kenobi show, you know, is a show that we had been waiting for, arguably. No, not, you know what? Screw arguably. It was the most important show that Star Wars could ever have released after George sold it to Disney. We got Darth Vader and Obi-Wan Kenobi in between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope. We got Anakin Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi, as well as Luke Skywalker and Leia. Literally the main characters of Star Wars, the most important part, time, everything. And
okay, already this tells me the fundamental flaw in his analysis is that he thinks Star Wars is only about the characters that we saw in A New Hope. And certainly the movies have mostly been around them, but I don't think that makes for a good world building. Like, when you've got an entire galaxy and you keep falling back on the same couple of characters and every single thing has to have a guy with a lightsaber. Even Han Solo, even the Solo movie, had a lightsaber at one point, literally just so that they could have a lightsaber in that movie. Rogue One, they threw in Vader doing his whole, like, hallway fight thing as an afterthought. Like, that wasn't planned, and then they thought it up and they did it in reshoots. And Rogue One is generally considered to be the best film since the Disney acquisition. And Rogue One was like the one of the writers on Rogue One ended up going and creating Andor, which is I think the best Star Wars TV show, hands down. Probably the best Star Wars media to come out in decades, and amazingly leftist. Rogue One, I think, still has some issues. I think, and it's pretty noticeable in reshoots and everything. Like, if you've seen the trailers for it, there's a lot of shots in the trailer that don't make it to the film. There's, like, the line where she says, "This is a rebellion, isn't it? I rebel." Yeah, that didn't make it in there at all. And it's my understanding that Tony Gilroy, who was the showrunner on Andor, was actually brought in to fix a lot of problems with Gareth Edwards' direction on that film. So a lot of the really good elements of Rogue One, I think, it's not confirmed, but I think I've heard behind the scenes rumors that a lot of that can really just be directly credited to Tony Gilroy, which, considering how good Andor is, I'm inclined to believe. But I still can understand where he's coming from, saying Obi-Wan Kenobi is an important show. I was really looking forward to the show. Ewan McGregor is, in my mind, Obi-Wan Kenobi. Far more than Alec Guinness is. Alec Guinness hated doing Star Wars. It was just a paycheck to him. He would tell fans to stop bothering him. There was, like, a kid who walked up to him and said, like, you know, I'm your biggest fan. I have all sorts of, like, Obi-Wan Kenobi merchandise and stuff. I love everything so much. And he's like, would you do me a favor? And he goes, anything. I'll do anything for you, Alec Guinness. He's like, never watch another Star Wars. Like, dude was actively like trying to crush the hopes and dreams of children. He hated Star Wars that much. So Ewan McGregor, who loves Star Wars and loves playing Obi-Wan Kenobi, he, in my mind, is Obi-Wan Kenobi. So like, and the promise of bringing back Hayden Christensen and him to do more stuff, like, I get it. I really do get why people were looking forward to Kenobi, and I do think Kenobi was a disappointment as a series. But let's hear what he has to say.
What kind of a budget does it get? It gets not even less than Andor, which I think had like 130 million or 110 million or maybe even more than that. What was the budget for Andor? Hold on here before I even get ahead of myself.
Oh, good. He's doing the work for me.
You guys are going to see such a more real side of me as we push into 2024 because I'm fed up.
Okay, well, it sounds like he is reacting to the Variety article on Marvel that I was looking at. Although they didn't mention Kenobi in that, it looks like people were, tying, like pointing out the Kenobi budget versus actually what was the Kenobi budget? 90 million. So yeah, that is significantly less than Andor. That's actually surprising. I think Andor definitely is a better looking show, because unlike Kenobi, they didn't use the volume. And the volume is a video wall. It's basically the modern day version of rear projection. And it was a technology invented for The Mandalorian because when they were filming that, they realized his suit is so shiny that if we film everything on a green screen, we're going to have to paint the green screen out of his suit for every single frame, and he's the main character. So they came up with this video wall setup that runs, I think, on Unreal Engine and is tied to the motion of the camera so that everything on the video wall moves in relation to the camera. And it can look really good when done well, when you actually build a set inside the volume and just use that to accentuate it. But a lot of shows that use the volume, I have seen they're doing the volume instead of building a set. And you end up with a bunch of bland, wide open spaces that it looks bad. And you see a lot of shows suffer for it because they think we've got the volume, we don't have to build a set. And it doesn't work out well. I think the volume can be used to great effect. Star Trek Strange New Worlds uses the volume. They use it for their engineering set, but they've also built an engineering set. They just have the video wall to like make it look like the ship's engines extend far beyond the spot where, the actors are standing. And I think that looks pretty good. But Andor didn't use the volume. Andor built real sets. Like that town that Andor was in, they built the whole frickin' town. So that doesn't surprise me that the show cost $250 million because they built a whole frickin' town. All right, let's go back to you. We're only a minute in.
I'm really tired. I'm really fed up. People that don't like me already don't like me. People that love me already love me. And I'm here for you guys, and I'm not here for anyone else. At the end of the day, I'm here for George Lucas. I'm here for Star Wars. I'm here for myself. And
why are you here for George Lucas? He hasn't been involved in Star Wars since 2013. Like, if you're here for Lucas, he left a decade ago, man.
And what Star Wars used to be. Let's get a few things out of the way. Not everything that Disney has created is total garbage. Maybe, 80, 90%. But there is that 10% that is actually really amazing.
Is he going to say Rogue One?
Mandalorian Season 1 and 2. Tales of the Jedi. The Clone Wars Season 7. Rebels. Ahsoka up until Episode 7 and 8. But what I'm trying to say...
You thought Ahsoka was good up until 7 and 8? I thought Ahsoka was kind of like a meandering mess the whole time. It's just got to be the member berries. It's just got to be, oh, well, Ahsoka, she's the character from Clone Wars, and Clone Wars was good. Also, I'm sorry, like, these people, they have such a selective memory about Clone Wars, okay? Like, just think of how hard it is to get new people into Clone Wars. Like, what is the most common thing that you hear said about Clone Wars is stick through it. It will get good eventually. But that eventually is in like season 3 or 4. And in the meantime, you have to sift through all of this kids show slog. And all of that is Dave Filoni. Like, I like Dave Filoni. I think Dave Filoni is kind of a cool guy. But holy crap, he's written some bad stuff too. And like, I don't think he's the savior that a lot of these people thought he was going to be for Star Wars. Rebels, though, I think Rebels is good all throughout. I think Rebels is a superior show to Clone Wars. I think Clone Wars, when it's good, is better than Rebels, but I think Rebels is more consistent throughout. And I will agree with him. Season 7 of Clone Wars is phenomenal. Now, with the caveat that if you lose the last 4 episodes of Season 7 of Clone Wars, then it just kind of feels like another season of Clone Wars. The last 4 episodes of Clone Wars, though, chef's kiss, amazing. It was basically what, like, yeah, it was a movie. It was literally a movie that just got split up into 4 episodes and released with a couple of other kind of okay stories, one of which was just a backdoor pilot for The Bad Batch, which I haven't watched yet. I've watched like 1 or 2 episodes of Bad Batch, but I haven't really got into it. But those 4 episodes alone make season 7 of Clone Wars phenomenal. So yeah, I'll agree with him there.
Is, not everything that has been created under Disney's umbrella was garbage. Now, mind you, those things were created by Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau, but I digress. Obi-Wan Kenobi, the most important Star Wars project since Disney purchased Lucasfilm from George Lucas in 2012, and it gets the lowest budget of any Star Wars show to date. She-Hulk gets a better budget than Obi-Wan? Freaking She-Hulk!
Yeah, of course he's going to use the Megan Thee Stallion twerking bit. Listen, I too complained about the Megan Thee Stallion twerking scene, so my hands are not clean here. Of course, that's what he's going to use for it. Personally, I think I would point out the fact that the show ended with Kevin Feige being represented as an AI robot who is forcing all of Marvel to fit a formula. Like, it's very cheeky of them to try and have that self-awareness of like, oh yeah, no, every Marvel thing's got to be the same. I'm Kevin, I'm the AI who's running all of the shows. Like, you can say that, but like then it turns out to be the truth. It's like you're not really making any commentary if you're not doing anything about it, you know?
I mean, what the hell, man? Like, who is making these decisions up there? I'm sorry to make this kind of video, dude, but honestly, like, who is making those decisions up there? You wonder why Star Wars is in such a state where no one is interested anymore. Nobody gives a crap. It's because of shit like this. And you know what? The budget.
I don't think budget is everything, though. Like I said, I actually would prefer to see Marvel stuff have lower budgets, particularly for street level superheroes. Like I think the Netflix Marvel shows were, for the most part, really good. Iron Fist and Defenders aside. So it's not just the budget, it's also got to be the writing, right? And I think the real problem with Kenobi wasn't in the visuals. I think it was that the plot was kind of a meandering mess. I thought there was some really good stuff in Kenobi, but I don't think any of its problems were because of its filming budget. I didn't really have any problems with how the show looked. Might have been a little dark in some places, but no, I think the problems with Kenobi had to do with the writing. And writers, not that expensive.
It wasn't even the biggest problem of the show. You have fan films, you have fan fictions that have like no budget, that have like...
Okay, so he's actually making a similar point to me here. Okay, all right.
Like the budget of an internet connection and a computer that honestly garner more attention and love than the garbage writing and directing that flew into the Kenobi show. You have the most important characters in Star Wars. Not only that, you're bringing back Hayden Christensen and Ewan McGregor. Forget Jimmy Smits, everybody else.
I mean, Jimmy Smits is fine, but like nobody's like, you know, cramming their pants because Bail Organa is back for another show, right? Like he's nobody's favorite character. Mostly people are just like, hey, it's the guy who's Leia's dad. That's why they care about him, you know?
Bringing back the goats, okay? The original, well, the prequel trilogy. That was the original, yeah. The OGs, man. The OGs from the prequels, okay?
God, it's so weird now that the prequels, like people like this, I'm assuming, view the prequels with such fondness. Because I remember when the prequels were coming out and how much everyone hated them. All of my friends hated them. I was kind of like the only one of my friend group who actually liked those films. And it's because I was a teenager with zero like film analysis acumen or anything like that. I just kind of liked things that I watched. And I didn't understand why people would like not like things that they're watching. So I didn't have a refined palate. And, you know, in years later, I soured on the prequels. I really think I'm going to blame Dave Filoni for this. Clone Wars kind of rehabilitated the image of the prequels because Clone Wars in its later seasons did such a good job building out the lore that was sorely lacking. All of the commentary that George Lucas wanted to make about the ways that liberal democracies are susceptible to the rise of fascism and are ill-equipped to combat it. George Lucas is kind of a left-leaning guy. So, like, he had the ideas there, but what he lacked was the talent and execution to pull it off. Like, I appreciate what he was going for, but it wasn't good. Dave Filoni took Clone Wars and built that out and found the stories that should have been told in those films. And I think that is a big part of why the prequels are seen more favorably today. That and people like this, people who are in their 20s, were babies when the prequels came out, so they grew up with them, so of course they've got the nostalgia for them. I was a teenager when the first prequel movie came out, so, it's a little different for me.
And you not only, give a crap script, you get people that don't know what the hell they're doing when it comes to writing the stories and the characters that George built and created. You regress them. You focus on Reva. You make chasing Leia literally like the most impossible thing to find a 9.
Oh god, yeah, the chase scene with Leia was bad. Focusing on Reva, okay, she was the new villain of the show. Like, sure, there was Vader too, but like, I didn't have any problems with Reva. And like, in general, there's no problem with introducing new villains to Star Wars. Like, for instance, in Ahsoka, probably one of the best things to come out of Ahsoka was Ray Stevenson's character, Baylan Skoll. Rest in peace, Ray Stevenson. I hope they recast that role so that they can carry on that character, because I really liked that character. They didn't like Reva because Reva was black. I don't know if this guy in particularly consciously didn't like Reva because she's black, but she's a black woman, and she was getting a lot of hate for that because here she is, this new character, and people are like, oh, Star Wars is woke now because a black woman can be the villain now. Like, I don't know where this guy stands on that, but I'm saying the general sentiment, the general hatred for Reva really, really stems from misogynoir. I'm going to say that.
9-year-old or 10-year-old. And above all, you have open-handed combat from a civilian against stormtroopers. I mean, look, stormtroopers suck, but they don't get disoriented like that from, a slap on the head, okay? But then
I don't know the specific fight that he's talking about because it's been a while since I saw Kenobi, but you actually, in fact, can get disoriented from a slap on the head in a helmet, depending on how it was done. As somebody who has done stage combat, in which I was doing medieval stage combat, so I was wearing, medieval armor with a helmet and everything like that, blows to the head can still disorient you. And if we're talking about hand-to-hand combat, was it Kenobi that was doing it? Because if it was Kenobi that was doing it, I mean, dude's a fucking Jedi Knight. Like, he can throw the Force into it,
Also managed to give literally the worst script of all time, the lowest budget of all time. I don't get it. I'm trying to understand this. I'm really trying to. Who's making these decisions, dude? Let's give this script the crappiest script of all time. Let's regress the characters, and then let's give them the lowest budget of the most important story in Star Wars, the most important characters in Star Wars.
Why is it the most important story in Star Wars? I would think the most important story in Star Wars is the original trilogy, because that's where everything else is built around. Doing a story about Kenobi while he's in hiding, if you're making a story that takes place between episodes 3 and 4, Kenobi ends his story in episode 3 basically where episode 4 picks up his story. So anything that he did in the in-between couldn't have had so much consequence that it would fundamentally change where he ends up. So structurally, you've already got a problem because however you write that story, he has to start and end the story in the same place, pretty much doing the same thing. I don't know why you're calling this the most important story. I don't. This is another story with Kenobi, but like, yeah, from the era that they picked to tell that story, I don't know how it could be the most important story. The only reason he's saying that is because Kenobi is a legacy character. Fat9 says it's most important because characters from original trilogy soy. Yeah, exactly. That's what he's doing.
But let's just literally give them the bare minimum, but focus all of our attention in Andor, which, yes, Andor is a great show for everyone.
Okay, this was the first clip that I saw, so let me go back. He calls it Andor, but then immediately says Andor is a great show. Which is it? Was it boring or was it good? Because generally speaking, boring things aren't good. Let's go back. Let's hear him.
Focus all of our attention in Andor, which, yes, Andor is a great show for everyone who attended film school and wants to eat their cheese with a French hat so they can twiddle their mustache at the same time and talk about the Renaissance era and how great things were back then while they...
Does he think Andor is an art house show? My guy, Andor is a very mainstream show. Like, what is it's because it had themes that were a little bit more complicated than this guy is bad because his lightsaber is red. It's because it had actual human characters with like human motivations. Like, Andor is not the best thing to ever be made, and it is certainly not some indie art house project. It was a $250 million TV show. It was like, it's prestige television for sure. It's like, you know, something that you would see from like the heights of like of HBO. But like Sopranos had broad mainstream appeal, even though it had a lot of artistic references in it. Like a lot of just like certainly film majors can get a lot out of Sopranos. There's a lot of reference in there to other films and things like that throughout its run. But it's a mainstream show. Andor is a mainstream show. It has leftist ideals woven into the plot masterfully, I would say, but that doesn't make it some snooty art house project. It's very broad. I'm sorry, dude.
Sip on their wine from 1922. Okay, don't get me wrong.
Hold. I'm sorry. Whoa. Stop. Hipster art house critics aren't drinking 100-year-old wines. They are drinking 1-year-old wines. Okay, these people aren't the rich people. they okay, like, no, I'm sorry.
I liked Andor. I liked it. It was a good show. It was fine. It was cozy. It was also extremely boring and made me...
Yeah, like, you can't have it both ways. You can't say you liked the show, but also that it was boring. I don't believe him when he says he likes the show. I think he's just afraid to say that it was a bad show because Andor is so uniquely liked among all of the Star Wars media to come out in the Disney era. I think he is actually afraid of audience pushback if he just openly says Andor was bad.
Fall asleep a million times while I was watching it, but it was still a good show. I enjoyed it. Just sleepy time, okay? Like, you want to put to sleep, you watch Andor. You want Star Wars, you watch Obi-Wan Kenobi. You watch Revenge of the Sith. You don't watch Obi-Wan Kenobi, you watch Revenge.
That's funny. That tells me a lot that after Kenobi, the first movie that comes to mind isn't like A New Hope or Empire Strikes Back is probably where I would go. No, his first thought is Revenge of the Sith, because that was like the best of the prequels, because that had all of the spinny lightsaber fights and the best writing of the prequels, you know, for what that's worth. Yeah, no, that really tells me. Now, this guy grew up watching the prequels. Like, this guy looks like he's late 20s, I would say, mid-late 20s. Yeah, he grew up watching the prequels. That's why he's talking this way. Bot Knight says he's giving away that he's not an original fan. Well, I don't even care about like original fan versus new. It's just the prequels aren't actually good. Like, I will maintain that the prequels aren't actually good. There are good things about them. I will say Revenge of the Sith is far and away the best one of the prequels, but you've got the originals right there.
The Sith, you're watching. So I'm going Italian now. That 6% Italian is coming out, and I'm starting to get a little bit angry here. You want to watch Star Wars, you watch the first 6 movies and you watch the Clone Wars. That's Star Wars.
Yeah, the Clone Wars. Oh my god, yeah, no, total Filoni fanboy. Got it. Yeah. Notice he doesn't bring up the books. He doesn't bring up anything about the Legends canon. None of that. No, he says, you want to watch Star Wars, you watch the first 6 movies and Clone Wars, which is funny because that's literally what Disney said when they bought Star Wars. They're like, yeah, we're doing a canon reset. The only things that are canon are the 6 movies and Clone Wars. You don't actually like Star Wars, my guy. somebody one of my chatters said that this guy used to do like lore videos. Like the fact that he wouldn't bring up any of the books, like the Zahn trilogy, like any of the stories about, you know, Luke's kids and Han and Leia's kids from Legends canon. He wouldn't bring up any of that. He just says the movies and Clone Wars. Like that really tells me the kind of fan that he is.
You want to create a Star Wars project, you create the Obi-Wan Kenobi show, but not the way it was written by Joby Harold and directed by Deborah Chow. You get someone competent who knows the characters and respects the characters. You get Jon Favreau and Dave. Why didn't
you get Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni? Yeah, no, dude's a total fanboy. And I'm sorry, Jon Favreau is a soulless corporate hack. I am sorry. I like The Mandalorian. I think it's an all right show, but Jon Favreau directed the Lion King remake. Dude is soulless.
Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni do the Kenobi show? Why didn't they do all shows? I mean, okay, Andor was fine. It was keep the guy there, but even he said, he's like, half the time I forgot I was doing a Star Wars show. This is just.
I mean, that's actually, to be honest, that is kind of the vibe that I got from Andor, is that Tony Gilroy had a story that he wanted to tell, and because he had worked on Rogue One, he had an in with Lucasfilm and was like, if this is a Star Wars project, I am more likely to be able to get it made. In terms of Star Wars projects, it doesn't use the Force. Like, there are no Jedi in this film, or in the show. And there's almost no aliens in the show. It's almost entirely humans. But it's interesting. It is a new look at like the average people in the Star Wars universe. I am so tired of every single time I turn on a Star Wars, it's all about the lightsabers and the Force. I want to know about the people that populate the universe. It's not all Jedi and Sith. There are other people in the galaxy.
I am so tired. No, I'm so tired of trying to be so nice to people. Man, I don't care if you don't like what I have to say. Don't watch my videos.
No, I'm going to watch your videos. If I don't like what you have to say, I'm going to watch this one. I don't know if I'm going to keep watching it, but based on the rants that I saw about Andor, I wanted to see what the rest of this was. So I'm going to watch this one, because that's what criticism is about. You watch something and then you critique it.
Here for them. I'm here for me. I'm here for Star Wars, George Lucas, and to protect the legacy, because quite frankly, dude.
What do you mean protect the legacy? You don't work for Lucasfilm. What the fuck are you protecting? You're a YouTuber. Sure, you're a big YouTuber. You got 3 million subscribers, but like, what do you mean protecting its legacy? You just make videos about Star Wars on the internet. You're not on Lucasfilm's payroll. You don't have any control over it. All you're doing is giving your opinion. You have no control over Star Wars' legacy because Star Wars doesn't belong to you. You can give your opinions on Star Wars. You can express concerns about Star Wars' legacy, but you literally have no power here.
I'm the only one that keeps doing it. And they make clips of me on TikTok or whatever, they can keep doing it, but I'm literally the only one who keeps driving the point home that Star Wars is what George created.
Bro, the best Star Wars movie is Empire Strikes Back, which George didn't write and didn't direct. George Lucas is a good ideas guy, but ideas guys are a dime a dozen. George Lucas got really lucky with the first Star Wars movie because his confusing, bloated mess got fixed by his then wife in the edit bay. And then he brought in actual competent filmmakers to make the following films. And that's why those were good, because he had other people to fix his ideas that he didn't know how to execute. And that's why the prequels are so bad, because he got so big that nobody wanted to say no to him anymore. George Lucas doesn't get to have sole authority over Star Wars just because he created the first thing as a collaborative effort with other people whose work is what makes it good. If it weren't for Marshall Lucas, nobody would be watching Star Wars today. So don't just put it all on one guy. Fuck this great man theory idea. George Lucas kind of isn't that great a creator.
It's not this shit that's been created now and given a crap budget so that She-Hulk can shine through as she twerks with Meg the Stallion.
I love how he narrativizes here, that it's not just that Kenobi was given a lower budget. No, Kenobi was given a lower budget because She-Hulk had to be more woke. And the more millions of dollars you put into She-Hulk, the more woke it is. Sure, they're both Disney properties, but they're run under different, like, subsidiary companies. Like, if they had wanted a $250 million budget for Kenobi, they could have gotten a $250 million budget for Kenobi. This wasn't money that She-Hulk was stealing out of the mouth of Ewan McGregor, okay?
I just don't get it, man. How can this $4 billion company be handled by these buffoons who don't even understand the characters, but also assign these nitwits to write for these legendary characters, and at the same time give them pennies?
Okay, well, oh, no. Sorry, no, when he's saying pennies, for a second I was just like, oh, yeah, we should absolutely be paying the writers better, but then I realized, no, he's talking about the overall budget for Kenobi, which wouldn't impact how much the writer was being paid for the most part.
But then they want to give She-Hulk the most money because it's what, CGI? Do you guys remember the ending of She-Hulk? What the hell did they do to Hulk's son? You guys remember Andor? Why does Andor have a $250 million budget? I mean,
dude, Andor's $250 million budget shows, and it was worth it. Like, sorry that you hate good things. Like, I don't like, She-Hulk was not a great show either. Like, you're not going to get me to defend that one. But I don't think we dislike it for the same reasons. Blood Video Company in chat says, oh my god, take the cock out of the mouth with glorifying the past. Yeah, it is a fundamentally reactionary view. The idea that all of the good things happened in the past, and they took it from us, and we have to return to tradition. Yeah, like, George Lucas was really hated during the prequels. And, like, it kind of sucked for him because, like, dude was just like, look, I just kind of want to make movies that I like, you know? And the internet bullied me so much I sold the company. Like, I get that. And, like, toxic fandom has always been a thing, and it was really bad during the prequels, so much so that Ahmed Best almost committed suicide and Jake Lloyd was institutionalized. But that's kind of like, that's like people like this. I don't know about him in particular, but the general ecosystem, this reactionary view of Star Wars, there are the reasons for it. Flatline says, in like 5 or 10 years, we will be getting these Gamergate types talking about how we need to return to Mandalorian and Andor. I mean, I'm already seeing it. Like, dude was praising Mandalorian and was talking about how Kenobi should have been made by Favreau and Filoni. So, like, it's kind of already there. Andor, I really don't think, I don't think we're going to see the Gamergate types talking about Andor as much because Andor is so explicitly leftist. But then again, I am also giving fascists too much credit because, like, a lot of the things that they love are explicitly leftist, but they just don't pick up on that messaging, you know?
I feel like we should have paid 20-30 million at least to Hayden, 20-30 million to Ewan, 60 million right there. Oh shit, you have the whole budget for the show. But they give 250 million to Andor, 250 million to, or 225 million to She-Hulk. You're looking at 500 million, you're looking at $500 million for 2 shows, which honestly aren't even the most important things in either of their franchises. What?
I mean, what's important to a franchise is what audiences react to, I would say. Sure, you might want the Kenobi show to be the most important thing because Kenobi is such a central character to Star Wars, but like, you're just upset because it should have been the most important thing, and you're upset that something was good that wasn't like Kenobi. Like, this guy doesn't actually like Star Wars, because if he actually liked Star Wars, he would like Andor and not keep shit talking Andor, because, like, if you've been clamoring for good Star Wars under Kathleen Kennedy, that's Andor. If you have been wanting Disney to make good Star Wars, that's Andor. For you to complain that Andor isn't good because it didn't have the names that you recognize, because the most recognizable character returning is Mon Mothma, that's a you problem, my guy. I'm sorry, but like I can actually enjoy things that introduce me to new characters so long as the performances and the writing and the directing is good. I don't need to only consume product from things that are familiar to me. I do like I understand the desire to wrap yourself in a warm blanket with characters that you remember from years gone by, but like you don't actually like Star Wars if you're upset that there was a good Star Wars show.
The hell are these people thinking? And you're wondering why South Park is making these kinds of comments towards Kathleen Kennedy. It's because people...
Oh my god! I can't play the clip because it's Comedy Central and it'll get the stream taken down immediately. But like I saw that clip from Cartman. Like it was a recent South Park episode where Cartman had a nightmare about how Kathleen Kennedy had taken over the world and had recast everyone in his life as like some woke, diverse group of people. And like Donald Trump Jr. retweeted, it's like, oh, South Park gets it and Kathleen Kennedy's evil. And I'm just like, they are making fun of you. Cartman is the villain here. Like, this is, you're not going to catch me defending Trey Parker or Matt Stone. Those guys are reactionary as fuck. But the way that scene played out, I am sorry, that is making fun of people like this. They watch that shit and they think, yes, Cartman, the explicit Nazi on the show, he has it right. Oh my god.
People there clearly aren't using their brains. And it seems like I'm taking crazy pills. I'm starting to feel like I'm Mugatu. It's like, does nobody see this? And we're all just standing around like, hey, it's okay. We got Andor. Andor's the best Star Wars we've ever... It's not. It's Blade Runner with a Star Wars theme. It's not bad. I love Blade Runner. Go to my Theory Talks channel. I'm always playing Blade Runner music. But that doesn't mean it's a good show for Star Wars.
What are you talking about? It's not a good show for Star Wars. Star Wars will die if it doesn't grow, my guy. They are having problems where they keep trying to go back to the legacy characters. Solo failed. Solo was a box office flop. And they tried to blame that on Alden Ehrenreich, but he was probably one of the better things about it. I thought he did a fantastic job playing Han Solo. No, the problem with that was just everything else about that movie. Star Wars needs to grow. I mean, like, as a Star Wars fan in the 90s, if you talked to other Star Wars fans, your conversation was almost never about the movies. Almost never about the movies. You would be talking about Mara Jade. You would be talking about Thrawn. You would be talking about the books and the comics because there was so much being made in the expanded universe. Nobody was talking about the original trilogy because Star Wars was so much bigger than that because they had built the universe out. And then Disney took over and got rid of all of that. And you think that once they start to build a universe out again, that's where they're going to lose Star Wars? You've lost Star Wars, man. You rejected the Star Wars that you had. What are you talking about?
Last Jedi was the most asinine representation of a continuation of Luke Skywalker's story that I've ever seen in my life. Yet it...
Okay, I'm going to go on a little bit of a rant here. So, I mean, of course he hates Last Jedi. Like, that doesn't surprise me at all. So many people blame Rian Johnson for how Luke Skywalker was treated in The Last Jedi. But I'm going to posit to you that was the only way that story could have been told. And if you don't like it, you should hate J.J. Abrams for writing Luke into that corner. Because if Luke, the Master Jedi who's rebuilding the Order and restoring democracy to the New Republic, if Luke goes away, hiding off on an island while fascism returns to the galaxy, he's got to be a fucking coward. And so the only way for you to write a story in which we've got to find Luke Skywalker is a story in which Luke Skywalker was hiding. And if he's hiding, it's not because he's summoning the big force bomb to defeat the enemy. No, that would be a bad way to write it. Luke Skywalker was hiding off on a Jedi temple all by his lonesome when the galaxy needed him because he was a coward, because he had failed and he was terrified of that failure and he didn't want to keep going. That's the only way you could have written that story. Rian Johnson took the shit that he was handed from J.J. Abrams and made it one of the best Star Wars movies. And if you've got a problem with that, You don't have a problem with Rian Johnson. You have a problem with J.J. Abrams having zero plan when he made The Force Awakens and handing Rian Johnson something. And Rian Johnson's like, well, there's no plan. Here, let me try and make it work. And I think it worked. I think it worked great. I really liked Luke's storyline in there. I thought it made the most sense for where his character was left in The Force Awakens. So if you are upset about how the prequel films turned out, don't blame Rian Johnson, my guy. Blame J.J. Abrams.
It was a good movie. It just wasn't a good Star Wars movie. What the heck? I don't...
What does that mean? He keeps saying that it was good, but it just wasn't good for Star Wars. What does that mean? What does good for Star Wars mean? Because obviously to him, it doesn't mean a good project that was made for Star Wars. Like, if it doesn't have a Skywalker saving the day in it, it's not good for him. Like, what does he mean? Oh my God. Vadir says, I love the whole multiple viewpoints thing. It was an amazing device. Yeah, the Rashomon thing. Yeah, no, I really like The Last Jedi. I do think, and this is something that I've talked about before, but like, I really don't like cliffhangers. I think cliffhangers are a really lazy storytelling device, and basically literally every cliffhanger that's ever been written has been written without you knowing the resolution. Because if you knew the resolution, you just write that. And it also, writing a cliffhanger means you had better find a good way to resolve it, because if you don't, it's going to bring the whole thing down. Empire Strikes Back would not be considered the best Star Wars movie by the majority of the Star Wars fan base if Return of the Jedi wasn't also good. Now, Return of the Jedi is generally seen as the weakest of the original trilogy, but it is also generally considered very favorably among the franchise. And in particular, it really nailed that Luke Vader dynamic. It gave us a really satisfying resolution to their father-son relationship. And if it hadn't done that, if it had fumbled that bag, everyone would be blaming Empire for the I am your father reveal. And let me tell you, before Jedi came out, when Empire came out, people were upset about that reveal and they thought it was ruining Star Wars. Empire was not considered the best film when it first came out. It was very controversial. It has only been with the benefit of hindsight, has been with the benefit of seeing everything that came since, that we can recognize how good it was for Star Wars. And so when the sequels come out and they don't have a plan, and J.J. Abrams ends it on kind of a cliffhanger where we don't know what's going on with Luke, and Rian Johnson's like, okay, well, you've handed me this cliffhanger, here's how I resolve it. I think that made the Luke story better because he took what we had for Luke and ran with it. But I also think that Last Jedi made The Force Awakens worse because Rian Johnson rejected the storyline about Rey finding importance in her parents. Now, I do like that story for The Force Awakens, but it also means that her motivation, the mystery of her parents being dropped, makes The Force Awakens worse because you're like, okay, that's nothing. I shouldn't care about it. Never mind. And then Rise of Skywalker comes out. And Rise of Skywalker rejects everything that The Force Awakens put out. Everything that The Force Awakens put out. Rey's parents, suddenly they matter again. Luke admonishes Rey for throwing a lightsaber away, saying, oh, this Jedi's weapon should be treated with more respect. It was a total repudiation of everything that The Last Jedi had done, that this toxic element of the fan base hated. And it made The Last Jedi worse for it, because all of these things that The Last Jedi had built up were thrown away. We don't get a resolution to them. Never mind. So, if you are mad at the way the sequels turned out, blame J.J. Abrams for writing the cliffhanger in the first place and for throwing away everything The Last Jedi did in the second place.
You know the movie How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days? I feel like Disney has one, like How to Lose a Franchise in 10 years. And now they're pouring all this.
This guy's never seen the movie How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. He literally was just like, he thought of the joke for that one.
Money and focusing on the Rey movie? Like, are you guys not learning your lesson? Like, seriously, are you not learning your lesson?
I'm interested to see where they take the Rey movie. It's my understanding that they're doing a time skip, so it's going to be like 15 years after The Rise of Skywalker, and Rey's going to be training the new era of Jedi. And if they do that, it sounds like she's probably not going to be like the main character but it might just be like a new launching off point. Like she can be the mentor character like Luke Skywalker was for her. I like Daisy Ridley. I think she's a really good actress, and her career has kind of petered out after Star Wars. So I'm happy to see her get another project. I'm reserving judgment on what this movie is going to be until it actually comes out or we start getting actual production details on it. I generally am kind of wary of any new Star Wars project that comes out these days. I don't think the franchise has been handled particularly well, but the things that he hates are all the things that I think have been the better parts of Disney's tenure with Star Wars. So I don't know what the fuck he's talking about.
I just don't get it, man. I don't get it how they can be so out of touch. Make better Star Wars, dude. Make Mando season 1 and 2. Make that continuously.
So not make better Star Wars, make the same Star Wars continuously. Andor was making better Star Wars. Andor was a breath of fresh air for Star Wars. It was a new kind of story in Star Wars, and it improves the connective tissue of Star Wars. But you don't like that because it's not familiar.
I don't know what the hell happened with the book of Boba Fett. Well, obviously...
Oh god, Boba Fett. Oh my god, that show fucking sucks. I'm sorry. And it really sucks too if you just want to watch Mandalorian, because you have to watch Book of Boba Fett because it ends up just being Mandalorian season 2.5. There's literally a whole episode of the Book of Boba Fett in which Boba Fett doesn't appear. It is literally just purely a Mandalorian episode. God, that show was a mess.
Someone's meddling with something out there, okay? Because it did the consistent wise, it just doesn't make sense. Mando season 1 and 2 were literally like perfection. Mando season 3 was the most disjointed thing I've ever seen. Boba Fett was just shit.
Yeah, I'll agree with you. I'll agree with you there.
To be honest, like the first 2 episodes were amazing. Then after that, it was like, what happened? Well, the Booby Fett.
What?
Yeah, well, like, what's going on here? I don't know.
Wait, what? Booby Fett? What does he mean? Is he upset that there were prominent female characters on the show? Boba Fett didn't have boobs. What are you talking about? I legitimately don't know what he's talking about there. Was that just let me kind of come up with like an insulting word to describe the show? I don't know what he means.
I don't know. I feel like it's satire at this point, you know? It's like we just constantly keep trying to see what else they're going to mess up at this point, and it's like, I don't want to do that. I just want to enjoy Star Wars. You guys remember how hyped Star Wars fans were when Mando 1 came out? Oh my gosh. It was like Star Wars was back. It was like after The Last Jedi, and we thought, you know, like, oh my god, okay, finally, we got something to grasp onto now. I don't know, dude. I don't know. It's just, and you know, they don't even want to give Kenobi a second season. It's like, well, yeah, I mean, I don't blame you, dude. Like, where are you going to go from there?
I don't know what they would do with the second season either. Kenobi wasn't the best show. It had a lot of promise, and a lot of that was squandered, but I don't think that was a budgetary issue. I really don't. I think it was a writing issue.
I mean, the whole show just focused on, you guys have heard me talk about it. I'm so frustrated. I'm so Disney, like, I don't know, you guys, do what you want to do, man. At this point, you know, you can't, it's in the hands of the fans, and the fans are going to continue to make fan films. You guys are going to continue to get roasted by.
That is actually one thing that I have really admired about Lucasfilm is how open they have been with the fan film community. There is a lot of Star Wars fan films, and like fan films are in a very legally copyright gray area, trademark stuff especially. And, you know, you can have things where like fan fiction and fan films, like certain franchises, you literally can't do it. Like Anne Rice, who she wrote Interview with the Vampire and the Vampire Lestat. You know, she was the she wrote the sexy non-sparkle vampires. She famously would like litigate against fan works. She did not want any fan fiction of her work, and because you're taking characters that another person created and those characters are under copyright, she had the legal right to do so. So for Star Wars to let people make fan films in that franchise, and I've seen some of those fan films, and like some of them are pretty good. A lot of them are pretty, you know, like amateurish and schlocky, but like I can appreciate the love that went into it, you know, from fans. So I really appreciate that Lucasfilm has been so open to allowing fan films. So that's really cool.
South Park and even bigger media.
Hang on, let me go back.
this point, you can't. It's in the hands of the fans, and the fans are going to continue to make fan films. You guys are going to continue to get roasted by South Park and even bigger media that will.
Oh yeah, roasted by South Park. Sorry, man. Like I haven't seen the full episode of South Park, so I could be wrong. But my read of that scene that I saw, they weren't roasting Star Wars; they were roasting you.
Come in the future, and you deserve it. You really do, because you aren't learning from anything, and you're continuously ruling with your ego, and you guys just have no idea what Star Wars is about at the end of the day. There aren't many people.
What do you think Star Wars is about? Do you think it is about magic lightsabers? Because if that's what you think Star Wars is, then you don't understand Star Wars. George Lucas wrote A New Hope to be a story about a bunch of guerrilla fighters taking on an oppressive imperial regime. He wrote a story about the Vietnam War, my guy. Like, Star Wars has always been political. And sure, it's also, a fun action adventure space fantasy. But if you want something that really captures the heart of what George Lucas intended with his writing, that his writing just wasn't good enough to capture, you want Andor. But you don't like Andor because its politics are so obvious to see that you can't pretend that it's just a fun, family-friendly action space adventure,
Lucasfilm, who have a real good, clear understanding. And yes, I do think I have a very good understanding of what Star Wars is. First 6 films, I think I know it better than pretty much anybody.
Oh my God, this guy thinks that... Okay, so somebody said he does a lot of Star Wars lore. So when he says he understands it, that means that he's memorized more facts about the lore. That doesn't mean that he understands it on like an intentional philosophical level. He thinks understanding it is remembering who Glup Shido is. If you asked him about the Vietnam War parallels in the original Star Wars, he would say, "You don't know what the fuck you're talking about. There's no Vietnam in space." Like, for him, it's knowing who has the coolest lightsaber and who uses the what is it? The Stance 7 lightsaber stance, the Mace Windu one that draws on your opponent's dark side energies to push them back against them. Like, that's the kind of stuff that he knows. That's what he thinks knowing Star Wars is. And like, if we want to go there, God, I know a bunch of Star Trek people who don't know Star Trek at all, because they could, like, I know Star Trek in and out, like, both on the technical, oh yes, I know this character and this, that thing and the other, and like all of the nitty gritty details of the lore, but I also understand Star Trek from a philosophical and political perspective. This guy doesn't get Star Wars like that at all. This guy thinks Star Wars is about remembering all of the space magic people with their lightsabers. That's what he thinks it is. And like, I'm sorry, but George Lucas disagrees with you, my guy. The guy that you think owns Star Wars, the guy who Star Wars should belong to, even though he sold it. Like, he's the only one that you think knows Star Wars, except for when it's Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau. That guy disagrees with you about what Star Wars is.
Clone Wars. I mean, you want to talk about mythology, you want to talk about Star Wars, you want to talk about character arcs, you want to talk about themes, you want to talk about the characters themselves, what they were going through, why they did what they did. You want to talk about force abilities, lightsaber techniques, and
oh my God, yeah, lightsaber techniques. See, there it is, right there. That's what I said. Like, that's not what makes Star Wars Star Wars. Like, that is like that is extended media that doesn't actually like build up the why of Star Wars. That is just, oh my God, yeah, I fucking called it. What is it? Oh, what was that force stance called? Mace Windu lightsaber stance. Form 7. Vapad. That's what it was called. Yeah, okay. I just Googled Mace Windu lightsaber stance Form 7. Mace Windu was known among the Jedi Order for his use of Vapad, a variation of Form 7. Yeah. So, like, that's the kind of stuff that he thinks knowing Star Wars means. But that doesn't tell you anything about what Star Wars means. That's just a fact about characters in Star Wars. That's not about the themes. Like, he brought up, the mythology of the arcs and the themes, but like, ask him to name a theme in Star Wars. I bet he couldn't.
Fighting styles and backstories and this and that. I mean, I know the movies and the books inside and out, I'm not the only one. There are millions of others at Lucasfilm that know so much about Star Wars. Sam Witwer and Dave Filoni. I mean, these are two guys that, like, you can't be luckier finding talent like this and having them be loyal to the brand and having them work for the brand. I mean, honestly, at this point, you would be a fool to not be hiring the two of them to work together to create everything.
You didn't really like Ahsoka. Like you said, Ahsoka was fine until episode 7 and 8, but Ahsoka was like explicitly Dave Filoni's baby. Based on the way you described Ahsoka, it seemed like you were more trying to say that it's good because it's Dave Filoni. You didn't seem that invested in it. Dave Filoni is not God. Dave Filoni is not infallible. Dave Filoni made the best parts of Clone Wars, but he also made the worst parts of Clone Wars. Like, there's a problem. There's a reason why Clone Wars is so hard to get into, and it's Dave fucking Filoni. I like Dave Filoni, but the dude is not infallible. The dude has done bad things. Ahsoka was not a great show, especially if you've never seen Rebels. Like, if you've seen Rebels, like, okay, great. Then you already know these characters, so you're already invested. But, like, my guy, Dave Filoni can do wrong.
Going forwards. Tired of this. Green light 1313. Green light The Force Unleashed 3. No one cares about your junk canon. Just create good stories that we love. Create the characters that we love. Embellish the characters that we love. Continue their stories. Create Star Wars. Make it great. Make it what it was. Give it a proper...
Make it what it was. Return to tradition.
Fair chance for the characters that matter. Give them the money they deserve. So weird. So bizarre to me.
Give them the money they deserve. Okay. When you say give them the money they deserve... See, when I say give them the money they deserve, I'm talking about paying, the actors and the writers and the creatives what they deserve, because I care about workers and I care about the creatives in the industry being able to put food on the table and afford to live in LA. And when you say give them money, what you mean is pump more into the VFX studios. You mean give it a higher budget so that they can do more spinny lightsabers. He's talking about the budget when I'm talking about, paying the people who are making it, which is a shame because, like, I could say that exact line and that exact phrase as him is pay them what they're worth, but we mean completely different things. He sees a $90 million budget for a 6-episode TV show and goes, wow, they really skimped on that. $90 million for a TV show that's only 6 episodes. My guy, that is a huge amount of money. That is a lot of money for a TV show. That is a huge amount of money for a TV show. And Kenobi does not look like a cheap show. Your issue with Kenobi is not in the budget. I guarantee you that. It was in the writing and the directing. And you don't need $250 million to get a good writer and director. They don't cost that much. I guarantee you.
They'll never learn. And we'll continue to be pushed towards the prequels and originals. That's all it is. That's all that'll happen. That's literally it. Yeah. Well, let me know what you guys think about this. Love you all. Have a great day. May the Force be with every single one of you.
All right. Oh, this guy. I don't know. I might take a look at more of his stuff later. I have heard that he's a bit of a lolcow in the Star Wars community, so maybe I'll give more of his work a look in the future, just as Reacts content. This guy, oh my god, 3 million subscribers. He's called Star Wars Theory, and he doesn't even like the good parts of Disney Star Wars. Hey, thanks for watching. I'm trying to get my channel monetized, so your view means a lot. Don't forget to toss me a like, and subscribe, and ring the bell. I stream Mondays and Fridays at 5 p.m. and Sundays at 2 p.m., so catch me live and join in on the convo. You can find all my socials in the description below, and thank you to all my patrons with a very special shout out to my Whale Shark tier patron Ryan D and my Anemone Friends tier patron Piftle Cakes. Your support means the world. Catch you next time.